Volume 5 moves the journey from survival travel into emotional consequence. Rudiness, Eris, and Ruijerd continue forward as dead end, but the biggest challenge in this volume is not a monster battle. It is meeting family again after years of silence and disaster. The story now carries the weight of the teleportation incident. Rudius has grown stronger and more confident, yet he has not fully understood how much other people have suffered while searching for loved ones. Eris and Ruijerd remain beside him as protectors and companions. Their bond has been forged through the demon continent, but the Millie's side of the journey will test them in a more personal way. This volume begins with a sense of progress, because the group is closer to home than before. But that progress also means they are closer to painful truths waiting in the human world. By the end of this introduction, the stage is set for one of Rudius's most important emotional lessons. Strength and cleverness are not enough if he cannot understand the pain of his own family. Event 1. Dead End reaches the Millie's continent after leaving the demon continent behind. The party reaches the Millie's side of the world. The environment feels more familiar and civilized, but it also brings new worries because human society judges Ruijerd harshly. Rudius senses that the group must be careful. Their reputation as Dead End has helped some people, but the name also creates fear, misunderstanding, and risk whenever they enter populated areas. The contrast between the wild demon continent and the more orderly Millie's roads makes the journey feel like a new phase. The party is not merely surviving monsters now. They must manage people, laws, and prejudice. Eris remains direct and impatient, while Ruijerd remains calm and disciplined. Rudinus continues acting as the bridge between them and the outside world. This first event establishes the volume's tone. The party has made real progress, but coming closer to civilization also means facing more complicated emotional and social conflicts. Event 2. Traveling toward Militian, the group begins moving toward Militian, the grand capital of the Millie's faith. Their road is filled with beautiful landscapes, but Rudius knows every step also brings them closer to news about the displaced Greyrat family. For Eris, the journey still feels like an adventure. For Ruijerd, it remains a mission of honor. For Rudius, it slowly becomes a search for truth about what happened after the disaster. Rudius tries to maintain confidence, but underneath his humor is anxiety. He wants information, yet he is not fully prepared for what that information might reveal. The party's trust remains strong. Their quiet travel scenes show how much they have become a small temporary family during the long journey home. By the end of this event, Militian feels close enough to matter. The city becomes the next destination where hope, guilt, and reunion will collide. Event 3. First view of Militian. The party reaches Militian, a grand city filled with religious authority, trade, and human crowds. The scale of the city makes it feel like a major checkpoint in the journey. Rudius looks for information about the teleportation victims and his family. The city is large, busy, and full of possible answers, but finding the right people is not simple. Ruijerd's presence remains risky. Even in a civilized place, the supered race is feared, so the party must balance visibility with caution. Eris reacts to the city with curiosity and energy, but she also follows Rudius's lead because the situation is more delicate than a normal stop in town. Militian becomes more than a location. It is the place where Rudius's journey stops being distant from the disaster and starts becoming painfully personal. Event 4. Searching for displacement news. Rudius begins checking information about people scattered by the teleportation incident. He learns that many families are still broken, and the rescue efforts are larger and more desperate than he imagined. This search forces him to recognize that the disaster did not only affect him and Eris. Countless people are missing, grieving, or traveling dangerous roads to find each other. The information network in Militian gives Rudius fragments of truth, but not the comforting answers he wants. Every clue brings both hope and dread. Eris and Ruijerd support him, but they cannot fully remove the pressure he feels. Rudius is beginning to realize that his family's situation may be far more painful than he assumed. This event prepares the emotional ground for Paul's appearance. The story is slowly tightening around the question of what Rudius owes to the people who have been searching for him. Event 5. The smuggling plot appears. The party becomes connected to a darker problem in the city: vulnerable children and victims being exploited by criminals. This shifts the volume from travel drama into a rescue situation. Rudius reacts strongly because the victims remind him of the helpless people displaced by the disaster. The city's beauty hides cruelty beneath the surface. Ruijerd's protective nature becomes important again. He has always been sensitive to children in danger, and this situation touches the core of his character. Eris is quick to anger when innocent people are threatened. Her response is physical and direct, showing how far she has grown as a fighter. This event adds action and tension while reinforcing the party's values. Dead End may be feared by reputation, but their actions continue to protect the weak. Event 6. A risky rescue in the city. Rudius, Eris, and Ruijerd take action against the criminal scheme. The rescue requires planning, timing, and the courage to act before more victims disappear. Rudius uses judgment and magic to control the situation. He is not only a boy on a journey anymore. He is becoming someone who can respond to real crises. Eris's sword skills create a powerful visual contrast against the city's narrow streets and hidden criminal spaces. She has become a reliable frontline protector. Ruijerd's calm strength anchors the rescue. His presence turns fear into safety for the victims, even though outsiders still misunderstand him. By the end of the rescue, the party has done something meaningful. But the city's shadows have reminded Rudius that every place in this world has pain hidden beneath its surface. Event 7. Dead End's reputation grows. The rescue strengthens the idea that Dead End is not a curse, but a group capable of saving people. This matters especially for Ruijerd, whose race has carried a terrible reputation for generations. Rudius continues trying to reshape public perception through action. He understands that one good deed will not erase history, but repeated kindness can slowly change how people think. Eris sees the value of the group's mission more clearly. Fighting is not just about winning, it can also protect people and restore dignity. The rescued children and witnesses become quiet proof that Dead End's reputation can become something hopeful instead of frightening. This event gives the group a small victory before the volume turns inward. They can help strangers, but Rudius will soon have to face whether he has properly cared about his own family. Event 8. Paul's search party is revealed. Information in Militian leads to Paul Greyret and the search party he has built. Paul has not been idle. He has been working desperately to find displaced family members and victims. The revelation changes Rudius's understanding of the disaster. He has been focused on getting Eris home, but Paul has been drowning in responsibility for many missing people. Paul's life after the incident has been harsh. He has become a leader, a searcher, and a broken father carrying guilt and exhaustion. Rudius does not yet fully grasp that pain. From his perspective, he has survived and done his best. From Paul's perspective, his son vanished while the family fell apart. This event sets up the central confrontation of the volume. The reunion is near, but it will not be the joyful scene Rudius expects. Event 9. Rudius reunites with Paul. Rudius finally meets Paul again in Militian. At first, the moment should feel like relief. Father and son are alive, and they have crossed impossible distances to reach this point. But the reunion is immediately complicated. Paul sees Rudius looking composed, successful, and accompanied by strong allies, while Paul himself has been suffering through failure and fear. Rudius expects recognition for his journey. He does not fully understand that Paul has spent years imagining worst-case scenarios and blaming himself. The emotional distance between them appears quickly. They are standing in the same room, but they have lived through completely different versions of the disaster. This event begins one of the most painful family scenes in the early series. The reunion happens, but love and relief are buried under misunderstanding. Event 10. Father and son clash. Paul and Rudius argue intensely. Paul criticizes Rudius for seeming carefree, while Rudius feels unfairly judged after surviving hardship and protecting Eris across dangerous lands. The fight hurts because both sides have understandable pain. Paul is broken by guilt and failure, while Rudius is still emotionally immature despite his intelligence and magical strength. Rudius reacts defensively. Instead of hearing Paul's fear, he hears only accusation, and that turns the reunion into a bitter confrontation. Paul's anger is not clean or fair. It comes from exhaustion, alcohol, regret, and a father's panic that has had nowhere to go for years. The clash ends without healing. This event shows that family bonds do not automatically fix themselves after separation. Sometimes reunion exposes the wound more clearly. Event 11. Rudius breaks down after the argument. After the argument, Rudius is shaken. He thought he had been doing well, but Paul's words force him to question whether he has been selfish or blind to the suffering around him. This is one of Rudius's important moments of emotional humility. He is powerful, clever, and capable, but still inexperienced in understanding other people's pain. The city around him feels colder after the argument. The excitement of reaching Militian is replaced by shame, anger, and confusion. Eris and Ruijerd can support him, but they cannot solve this conflict for him. Rudius must decide whether he wants to protect his pride or repair his relationship with Paul. This event slows the story down so the emotional damage can sink in. Rudius's growth depends on admitting that he may have missed something important. Event 12. Geese helps Rudius understand Paul. Geese becomes an important mediator by explaining Paul's situation more clearly. He helps Rudius see that Paul's anger came from grief, desperation, and years of searching without answers. Rudius begins to understand the scale of Paul's burden. Paul was not simply waiting for rescue. He was trying to lead a search while losing pieces of his own family. This conversation forces Rudius to look beyond his own heroic journey. He realizes that returning alive is not the same as understanding what others endured while he was gone. Geese's perspective matters because he is blunt but not cruel. He gives Rudius the emotional context that Paul could not express during the fight. By the end of this event, Rudius is ready to reconsider the argument. The first step toward reconciliation is learning to see his father as a wounded person, not only as a parent who failed him. Event 13. Rudius and Paul reconcile. Rudius and Paul speak again, this time with more honesty. The reconciliation does not erase the pain, but it allows both of them to admit that they were hurt and afraid. Paul shows vulnerability beneath his anger. He is not a perfect father, but he is a father who has been terrified for his family. Rudius also takes responsibility. He begins to understand that growing up means listening even when criticism hurts. Their embrace carries the emotional weight of the volume. It is not a clean, happy ending, but it is a genuine repair after a deeply painful misunderstanding. This event is the heart of Volume 5. Rudius matures because he chooses empathy over pride, and Paul regains a piece of the son he feared he had lost forever. Event 14. Meeting Norn again. Rudius also meets Norn, his younger sister, under difficult circumstances. For Norn, Rudius is not a warm, familiar brother. He is almost a stranger connected to frightening adult conflict. Norn's reaction is emotionally important because it shows that family cannot be rebuilt instantly. She has her own memories, fears, and loyalties shaped by the years after the disaster. Rudius wants connection, but he must accept that Norn's trust cannot be forced. This becomes another lesson in patience and emotional responsibility. Paul's relationship with Norn also reveals how much he has been trying to hold on to the family he still has with him. This event adds a quieter sadness to the volume. Rudius is reunited with family, but not every reunion feels warm at first. Event 15. The search for the missing continues. Paul explains the ongoing search for Zenith, Lilia, Aisha, and other displaced people. The disaster remains unresolved, and the family is still scattered across dangerous regions. Rudius realizes that getting Eris home is only one part of the larger tragedy. His own family's future is still uncertain. This discussion gives the story a wider emotional map. There are survivors still missing, rescue teams still moving, and families still waiting for answers. Paul cannot simply leave his work, and Rudius cannot abandon his responsibility to Eris. Their paths must separate even after reconciliation. This event turns reunion into renewed purpose. The characters have healed enough to move forward, but the road ahead remains full of unfinished searches. Event 16. Rudius chooses to continue with Eris. Rudius decides to continue escorting Eris home. This choice reflects his promise, his responsibility, and the bond built through the journey from the demon continent. Paul accepts that Rudius has his own mission. Their reconciliation allows them to separate without repeating the bitterness of their earlier fight. Eris remains central to Rudius's immediate path. She has trusted him through danger, and he cannot abandon her near the end of the journey. Ruijerd also continues with them, maintaining the protective mission that has defined Dead End since the beginning. This event gives the party a clear direction again. The family reunion changed Rudius, but it does not stop the journey. It makes him continue with a more mature heart. Event 17. Farewell to Paul and Millicent. Rudius says farewell to Paul and the search party. Unlike their first reunion, the farewell carries understanding, regret, and renewed affection. Paul remains behind to keep searching for missing people. His duty as a father and leader continues, even though saying goodbye to Rudius again is painful. Rudius leaves with a stronger sense of what family means. It is not only about being alive, it is about staying connected despite mistakes, distance, and guilt. The city of Millicent becomes a memory marked by both pain and healing. It gave Rudius one of the hardest lessons of the journey. This event closes the emotional center of the volume. Rudius does not leave unchanged. He carries Paul's pain and love with him. Event 18. Dead End resumes the road home. Rudius, Eris, and Ruijerd resume their journey toward the Fatoa region. The road ahead still holds danger, but the party now moves with deeper emotional awareness. Eris and Ruijerd notice the change in Rudius. He remains clever and humorous, but the reunion with Paul has made him more reflective. The journey scenes after Millicent feel quieter and more mature. The party is no longer only escaping the consequences of the disaster, they are learning to live with them. Rudius understands that reaching home will not magically restore the past. The displacement incident has changed everyone, and every reunion may bring complicated truths. This final event points toward the next stage of the story. Dead End continues forward, carrying hope, guilt, and the desire to bring Eris home at last. Conclusion. Volume 5 Emotional Turning Point. Volume 5 is important because it turns a long adventure into a deeply personal family drama. The greatest conflict is not a monster or a villain, but the painful misunderstanding between Rudius and Paul. Rudius learns that surviving hardship does not automatically make him emotionally mature. He must learn to understand grief that does not belong to him. Paul is shown as flawed, angry, and broken, but also deeply human. His reunion with Rudius becomes powerful because it allows both father and son to be imperfect and still choose reconciliation. The volume also keeps the larger rescue story alive. Zenith, Lilia, Aisha, and many others remain missing, so the emotional consequences of the teleportation disaster continue beyond this arc. By the end of Volume 5, Rudius continues his road with Eris and Ruijerd, but he is no longer the same boy who entered Militian. He leaves carrying empathy, regret, and a stronger understanding of family.